Hello everyone, I'm Fernando the Cardboard Stacker and welcome to the quick start tutorial to Trash Pandas, a push your luck set collection game by Lisa and Michael Eskew and featuring the art of Kwanchai Moria. It's for 2 to 4 players and plays in 15 to 20 minutes. As Trash Pandas, or really scavenging raccoons, your goal of the game is to find trash and stash them. By the end of the game, you score based on the majority you have collected. And there's another thing, each piece of trash can be used in its own way to benefit you, but you may not be able to stash it for points. When the deck runs out, the game is over and the players score for their stash. Setup of the game is easy. The player who recently took out the trash becomes the first player. They shuffle all the cards together, take the die, and place the token in the middle of the table. Then they give out cards to player by the position from the first player. The first player gets 2 cards, the second player gets 3 cards, the third player gets 4 cards, and the fourth player gets 5 cards. This does not change on how many players are playing. Alright, it's time to play the game. The first thing a player does is they must roll the die and decide to either stop or continue to roll. From the result that is rolled, the player takes in front of them the matching token from the middle of the table. The player may continue and repeat to roll, but if the roll matches any of the same tokens they previously collected, they bust. A busted player draws a card as compensation and it's the next player's turn. If the player manages to get all 6 tokens, they earn a bonus turn right after using the tokens they collected. After deciding to stop rolling, the player may resolve each gathered token in any order. It's important to note that resolving any token can only take place once rolling is completed. After using a token, the player returns it to the middle. Once all tokens have been used, or the player wishes not to use the remaining tokens, return any token to the middle of the table and it becomes the turn on the player to the left. Now let's go through each of the 6 different tokens and their actions. The token with the 2 trash cans has the player draw 2 cards from the deck. The ones with the 2 trees has the player stash up to 2 cards. These cards go face down. Stash cards are a pile of cards a player owns that is set aside to be used for scoring at the end of the game. Cards here aren't considered to be part of a player's hand. Moving on to this token with a trash and a tree, the player may choose to draw and stash it in any order. This token here allows you to steal a card from another player, but beware both Doggo and Kitha cards a player may have. The Bandit Mask has the player reveal the top of the deck and draw the card into their hand. Each other player may reveal the same kind of card to have it stashed into their piles face up. By each player doing so, the current player may draw that many cards to their hand. The Recycle token when used is substituted for any of the other tokens that was not taking this turn. If the player manages to take all the tokens, the players won't be able to use the Recycle token. If a player manages to take all 6 tokens on their turn, then they get to do a bonus turn on the same turn. The bonus turn is played exactly like a regular turn, stopping and continuing as normal. However, the player may only collect up to 3 tokens. Once the last card is drawn, the current player finishes their turn and the game is now over. Cards that are left in hand do not count towards scoring. The players score for majority for each type of card they have in their stash. Both the Doggo and Kitha card do not score for points. The Blammo scores 1 point for each one instead. For example, the player with the most Yum Yum card scores 4 points and the player with the second most scores 2 points. No points are scored for anything beyond that. If any players tie for a certain rank, then all players receive the points for the rank -1. The player with the next highest amount of cards will get the next rank. The same is done for any of the following ranks for every tie. The player with the most points at the end of the game is the winner. If there's a tie between players, the player later in the turn wins. Let's get into more detail with these cards. First, there is no maximum hand size. Second, cards still in hand by the end of the game do not count towards scoring. And third, the number indicated between parentheses is the number that can be found in the deck. There are cards that can be used on either of the player's turn or on other players' turns. There is no limit how many cards a player can play on a turn. Let's begin with the Fish card. The player may look through the discard pile and take 1 card into their hand when the Fish card is played. The player can use the Pai to resolve a token they have taken twice. For example, playing a Pai on a token with 2 trees means the players can stash up to 4 cards. Using it on a recycle card can have a player choose 2 of the remaining tokens. However, multiple Pai cards cannot be used on a single token. The Yum Yum cards can only be played on other players' turns. When a player wants to stop rolling their die to move to the next step, any player may play this card instantly to have the current player continue to roll, applying the result as normal. The Nanners prevents a bust and forces the player to stop and move on to resolving tokens. It nullifies the current roll and the player stops rolling for their turn. The Blammo scores 1 point for each 1 stash. A player may play this card after any result of the die to reroll it. On a side note, the player can react to a Yum Yum card with either a Nanners or a Blammo, and players may continue to use Nanners and Yum Yums after each other. This token here allows you to steal a card from another player, but beware both Doggo and Kitek cards a player may have. Both the Doggo and Kitek card cannot earn points for being stashed, but they have interesting effects. The Doggo has 2 effects. The first is that it can protect a player's hand and stash from being stolen from. When a player tries to steal a card from a player that has a Doggo card, it can be played and be discarded to prevent stealing. A player can also play Doggo to draw a card for each token they've taken on their turn. The Kitek cards are used to counter stealing. If a player is stealing a card from the player, a player may play the Kitek card to prevent the stealing effect and instead use it against them. So if a player is stealing from a player's stash with a shiny, the Kitek card can be played to steal from their stash instead. This concludes the quick start tutorial for Trash Pandas. For more information about this game, please visit Redbook Games, following the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like and become a subscriber for more tutorials and other videos like reviews and previews on all things board gaming. I'm the Cardboard Stacker, and remember to keep on stacking games.